Oh my gosh, you just have cash sitting in your checking and savings account. You're so dumb. Lots of opinions on what I do with my money. And I was like, you know what? I was smart enough to earn it. I think I'm going to know how to invest it. So I've just kind of been waiting, for what feels right. This year, my whole family, we moved to Florida and I was like, all right, I'm going to buy a house. Like I'm 28, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to see how this goes. I'm actually in it right now. And I was reading these business books this summer and it just kind of all came together where I was like, I hate investing my money where it's like intangible in these accounts that like you don't see for 40 years. I hate that. Like it's just not how I am.
Welcome back to the Residual Real Estate Agent Show. Today we've got a very special guest. Her name is Alex Fasulo. She is a freelancer, runs a freelancing business that makes approximately $350,000 and is also in the real estate investment game. Today, she's going to be taking us through her journey of how she went from having a job that she didn't like to quitting that job with absolutely no plan, to freelancing, to mastering that, and now being able to educate people, and then also transitioning into real estate. Alex, how are you?
I am well, Jose. How are you? How's everything going?
It's going well. I'm excited to have you on the show. It's always nice to see somebody young. Plus, I think that your story can connect with a lot of people right now. The reason is I know that a lot of people are in jobs that either they don't like, or people are being forced to do certain things like mandates where maybe they don't want to do them. So I think that having somebody who can provide them with additional options, let them know that they're not on their own and that there's additional options where maybe somebody can work from home, maybe somebody can be their own boss, still make a very good living. I think it's a perfect timing for this podcast.
Yeah, it's funny because my story, as you know, it's 7 years old now. It's funny, since 2020, that's really when attention started coming to my story because of the pandemic. So many people, like you just said, are looking for alternative avenues for making money and not necessarily being locked in an office anymore. And can you blame them?
It's funny. It's almost like you were a little bit ahead of everybody else.
In a way, yeah. I mean, I obviously can't, know the future. So it's just kind of, I look back and go, this is also funny.
Walk us back. Like, what were you doing before you started freelancing? And why did you decide to end that? Because it sounds like you ended that pretty abruptly, like no
Yeah.
game plan or anything like that.
By 22, I had worked 2 office jobs. So I started working when I was 21. And the second office job I took in New York, it was kind of the same thing as the first office job. And I, at that point, had been working for 16 months. And I didn't know a lot. I'm 22, but I did know I absolutely hated beyond belief working in an office. I just knew that. I knew that in the bottom of my heart, like just confirmed. I hate offices. I hate office culture, being told what to do with my hair, my clothing, just all of it. I was like, I hate this. And so I quit it with no plan, no job lined up, nothing. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just so unhappy in an office building. And I was like, I have to leave. Goodbye. I tried a bunch of things naturally after I quit that job, because I wanted to just make ends meet. Like I wanted to just pay my rent. I was going to do anything it took to not go back to an office. And one of those things was Fiverr, was freelance writing. It's one of the many things that I tried. And it happened to be the one that took off as far as money is concerned. So I paid it more attention naturally. The momentum has kind of just built ever since then. It never stopped. Like I've been freelance writing since I was 22. Never had a day where I haven't logged on or talked to a client. The demand was there and is more there than ever today as more businesses, come online because of the pandemic.
For those of viewers that don't know what Fiverr is, what is Fiverr? And then what are some examples of other websites similar to Fiverr where people can go and essentially offer their services?
So Fiverr is a marketplace, right? So it brings buyers and sellers together. So in this case, the buyers can be anybody from startups to corporations, Fortune 500 companies, can be anyone on the planet, other freelancers looking to buy a service. So that service could be someone who writes a blog for them, someone who edits their podcast, somebody who makes a graphic that they post on social media, 550 different services on Fiverr. I use Fiverr to buy stuff too. And then there's the sellers, which is how I've made my money, being someone who sells my writing to the buyers on Fiverr. And no, Fiverr is not the only marketplace out there. Upwork is, right up there with them. LinkedIn is, planning to full scale launch their own marketplace next year, which should be super interesting. There's a lot lot of up and coming platforms right now I kind of keep my eye on. One's called Legit.
So it's almost an opportunity in two senses. One, it's an opportunity for somebody like you that had a certain service where you can offer it to a marketplace. And two, it's an opportunity for somebody like me that needs a service. I can go out to these marketplaces, find people like you, hire them, have them do a really good job, and without having to hire a 40-hour-a-week type of employee. Did you always start off in the writing space as it related to Fiverr, or did you try out other different services there? And then what would be some of the most popular services offered on these websites? And then what would be some of the services that maybe yield the highest return?
So I've only ever done freelance writing on Fiverr. I've tried doing social media management and stuff like that off of Fiverr, but I've only ever done freelance writing. I've had at this point 20 different writing services on Fiverr. I currently have 13. So I definitely know my way around the writing and translation department on there. What's nice is Fiverr very publicly ranks its most to least lucrative services for people to see. I don't think they realize if you just go to the homepage from left to right, it's ranked, most traffic department to least. So the most trafficked is graphics and design. And then underneath it, it's still ranked again for you to see. So it goes graphics and design, social media marketing, digital marketing, then writing and translation is actually the fourth. So I'm not even in like the most popularly trafficked section, even though there's a ton of people buying writing, but it goes all the way down to lifestyle. And there's people selling health coaching, like tarot card reading, spell stuff. Like there's crazy weird things that are going on Fiverr that people are still making like 2, 3, 4K a month doing. But if you're over in, graphics or writing, you can be making 40K a month. That's kind of the difference. But I've seen people make a living doing anything on there. Like it's possible.
And then walk us through like the learning curve. Like when you just signed up to Fiverr, were you like an instant hit? Or was there certain things that you had to do in order to kind of get the hang of it? And what are maybe some of the lessons that you've learned along the way?
So I had actually been on Fiverr while I worked my office job because I was bored at the time, back when I was 21. I didn't know how Fiverr worked. I didn't pay it any attention. I had one $5 like editing thing that I kind of half did. It wasn't until I quit my job that I opened Fiverr and was like, all right, this is the one thing in my life that's in a way making me money right now. Maybe I should pay more attention to it. And back then there wasn't all these videos and how-to guides and YouTubes and podcasts and all the things I offer people. I didn't have any of that. So I was sitting on there and I was like, okay, I'm going to look up blog writing. Maybe I could do that. And I would just type it in, and I would see other people who had been offering it pop up, and I'd open all of their profiles, all of their gigs, it's called on Fiverr. And I just spent days stalking the crap out of every single thing these people were doing. I just like copied these people. Obviously I didn't copy and paste, their words. I wrote my own words. I always have to like clarify that because sometimes people take my words so literally, but no, I didn't like copy their words, but I basically just copied what they were doing. That's business. In a marketplace, their information is freely, publicly just sitting there. So when people will say to me, I don't know what to charge, I don't know what to whatever, I'm like, guys, never before in history can you just go look at your competitors' finances. Like they're just sitting there for you to see. So that's what I did. I just copied people, and pretty much within the first or second month, I was working very hard, like super, I was doing like 12-hour days because I had a lot of orders coming in for cheap. But by the second month, I was making enough to cover basic bills in Brooklyn, New York. So I was like, I'm going to run with this.
What are some of the different services people would hire you for? Like, I know that you said that you have like 13 different services that you offer now. At some point you had 20. Like, what would be an example or a couple of examples of reasons why somebody would hire you?
It could be anything. They could message me because it's a startup that wants to sell a new watch and they need a crowdfunding campaign text written up for GoFundMe or Kickstarter. It could be a real estate group needs a press release written that they're going to send out to journalists tomorrow. It could be another freelancer who manages a blog and doesn't have time to write their blog. So they give me bullets and they want me to write their travel blogs instead for them. It's so broad, but that's what has made me not get bored of it after 7 years, because everything's so different every day. You have no idea like what you're going to be working on.
The cool thing is that you don't have to go into an office either, right? You get to basically, this is the interesting part. When I think Fiverr, I think that most gigs are $5. So I'm thinking $5 per gig, $350,000 on Fiverr. How does that add up?
I blame Fiverr for that by picking a horrible name for their company because it hasn't been based on $5 for like 5 years now. But I understand why people are confused because they named their company Fiverr. So I blame them for this. But no, back in 2017, they launched Fiverr Pro, which is their top vetted talent, top 1%. They've made me part of that back in 2017. My base price for everything I offer is $100. A lot of the things I offer that are between $100 and $200, I can do in 1 hour. If you do the math there, it adds up quickly. And it has nothing to do with $5. In the very beginning, 7 years ago, it did. People don't even charge $5 today. They start at like 15 or 20. So I don't know if they'll ever change their name. I don't think they can, but I have to imagine they regret it.
And that's basically how they started. It was just like, you can go on there to hire somebody for $5, but it looks like it's evolved over time. And it sounds like now somebody can go on there, make $50, $100, $200 an hour in the comfort of their own home, offering something that they believe in. How do you manage so many clients at one time? Like, is it just you making that type of money on there, like you providing all the services, or do you have like an assistant that kind of manages your emails or kind of keeps you accountable or anything like that? Or
it's funny because people are now just learning about me as I actually end up phasing out of this stuff after 7 years, as naturally progressing as a business person. But for the first 5 years, it was me entirely by myself, like a crazy person, no days off, 10, 12, 14-hour days for 5 years, like just crazy. 2 years ago, I hired my first writer that helped split things with me. So it's just me and him for a long time. And then it was not until this year, 2021, that I totally expanded it out to remove myself from the day to day so that I can do all of these other things that are kind of coming my way now. So on any given day, my best friend, who's now my business assistant, she's actually sitting out there right now. She runs my Fiverr for me. So I trust her to go into my Fiverr. She'll message the clients, take all the orders, and give it to the 6 writers that we do the writing with. We also have 2 virtual assistants that help her. So I have a whole like 10-person thing going on now. And I know people would hear that and be like, oh, well, of course she makes that money because she has this. But I just want to reiterate that is so new in the last 6 months of my life. Like it's just a brand new thing.
And that's the cool thing, that it sounds like as you evolve, now you've developed a certain standard and a certain level of clientele. You get a lot of repeat clients coming back as well too, like people using you over and over for different things, I would imagine. So.
Yeah. That's a big part of freelancing. So 65% of my clients are returning clients. And that's why when people are like, oh, I don't know if I could do it. It's not stable income. And I'm like, it's actually much stabler than you realize, because once you take the time to get to know a business and the owners and the brand values and the colors and the messaging, once they've spent months training you in that, they don't want a new freelancer. Like, you're basically a de facto part of their team, but you're not actually. They'll stick with you. They spent months, betting on you kind of. So more than half of my clients are repeat.
What does somebody need to get started? Like, meaning in order to get started on a Fiverr or Upwork or anything like that, like what would be like a kit? And then also, like, I imagine that these marketplaces don't work for free. I imagine that obviously they take a percentage, or is there a startup fee, or how does that work? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so it actually, and that's why I promote these marketplaces to my followers on social media. I don't get paid anything by them to do it, but you don't need anything technically to get started on them. And that's why I think they are such an amazing tool. If you're brand new, if you just quit your job, if you're panicked, if you have no money, you don't have to like pay to get into Fiverr. However, Fiverr and Upwork take 20% of your closed sales. So like they get their payback, but it's still, they don't charge you anything to get on there. The most important thing somebody does need to create for a Fiverr profile, and they can do all of this for free, is they need to have their cover images, like thumbnails, like thinking of YouTube. Those need to look nice. They can make them in Canva for free, the free version of Canva. And they need a portfolio. And this could be as simple as like 3 work samples. You can go do those for free for people. Who needs a logo? Who needs a blog written? Go publish a blog on Medium. Go do what you need to do. Take a screenshot. Now you have a portfolio. Now you have imagery, and it was all free to do.
Is there anything else that you would do to kind of ramp it up a little bit? If you've got just 3 portfolios, I imagine that, is it just that the newer people just discount the price to kind of get the clientele and the 5-star reviews at the beginning, then you kind of work your way up, or what's the best way to kind of ramp it up to
Yeah.
eventually build it to the way that you've built it?
You know, some people don't like to hear this, but yeah, it's basically having low rates for a month or two, working your ass off, you know, get your 100 5-star reviews. And then in the scheme of things, that's such a short amount of time to have to work for like lower than market rate. Because pretty much once you get those reviews, you advance a level on Fiverr. Fiverr's have like level ranking. You can pretty much ramp it up to where you're making $50 an hour, like very quickly, like in a few months. So that's amazing. Most times you have to pay your dues somewhere for years to be making $50 an hour. And you can do it in 3 months on there. If you're willing, though, to bury your pride for 2 months and work for a little pay to get the reviews, sometimes you're going to have the unfair clients and it's going to be a tough 2 months, but it's just 2 months in your life. You know, it can change your life if you just put in those 2 months.
How important is customer service as it relates to the freelancing industry?
Customer service is everything. You don't have to be the most talented person in the world, but if you know how to keep your clients happy, you'll be a millionaire as a freelancer. Same thing as you could be the most talented person in the world. If you're terrible at customer service, your business will not be as successful as the person who goes above and beyond to make sure their clients are happy. So that's the side of freelancing I don't love. I'm not a natural customer servicey type person. I used to get in trouble on Fiverr in the first few years because when people would be super rude to me, I'd be super rude right back. And they'd be like, no, you can't do that. And I'd say, well, what do you mean I can't do that? This guy just insulted my work and like my mom or something. They'll be like, no, you still can't fire back at them. So the customer service side is tough, but if you can kind of just grin and bear it through it, you can make a lot of money.
Are you Italian by any chance?
Yes.
Wow, that's so funny. It's funny because I looked at the last name, I'm like, and then I kind of looked at the way you were responding back, and it reminded me a little bit about Jersey Shore a little bit. Like,
God. Oh God.
yeah, it's funny, but okay.
Yeah.
Now you're guiding people and you're helping them get their freelance business going. What is the difference between somebody who kind of gets stuck and doesn't go anywhere versus somebody who's extremely successful like you? Like, what would you say are some of the key traits or some of the differences in that?
I mean, this is kind of like generic answers, persistence, commitment. Like the person who logs onto their Fiverr every single day is the one who is going to beat out the person who doesn't. So I'll have people all the time, they'll be like, oh, I'm getting started on Fiverr. I'm having a great week. And then they'll message me, a month later and be like, no one's writing to me anymore. I don't know what happened. And then they'll eventually tell me they just didn't open Fiverr for 2 weeks. You know, with any business, you can't just forget that it exists for 2 weeks. It will fail. That's business in general. So I'll be like, you guys, you have to see this as your own little baby. Like it's your own business. You can't just neglect it. So the person who doesn't neglect it will win every time. And the one who just kind of like half doesn't really care about it will not be successful at it, because you do have to care.
As it relates to the education part, is this education just on YouTube? Do you have private courses for that, or what does that look like now?
I have so many educational resources, it's insane. So I have 5 paid for courses, 5 free ebooks, a free podcast, a YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and Instagram, and I have 2 free groups on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm like insane.
So now you've transitioned a little bit into real estate as well too. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so for the last about 3-4 years, I've been earning very good money, especially for my age. And I've just been saving it. And I've had a lot of people tell me that's stupid. Oh my gosh, you just have cash sitting in your checking and savings account. You're so dumb. Lots of opinions on what I do with my money. And I was like, you know what? I was smart enough to earn it. I think I'm going to know how to invest it. So I've just kind of been waiting, for what feels right. This year, my whole family, we moved to Florida, and I was like, all right, I'm going to buy a house. Like I'm 28, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to see how this goes. I'm actually in it right now. I decorated it, and all this stuff. And I was reading these business books this summer, and it just kind of all came together where I was like, I hate investing my money where it's like intangible in these accounts that like you don't see for 40 years. I hate that. Like, that's just not how I am. I'm a very like year to year person, and I want to be able to enjoy, my money that I've worked so hard for. So I was reading some books, and then also a bunch of people on TikTok started coming up in my feed who were big on Airbnb. So I started to watch more and more of these real estate investment videos on TikTok. And I was like, this makes the most sense to me because it's a physical asset that I own. I can enjoy it every so often if I want to. If there's, a month that the tenants aren't in it or it's, whatever, I can enjoy it. It's a great stable return on my money. It's super, super valuable and it's amazing for taxes. So I was like, I don't know why I would do anything else but start buying real estate. This year I've purchased a house in Southwest Florida. I have one apartment in Miami, South Beach. I have a second Miami, South Beach one closing 1 week from today, actually. And then I think I'm going to cool it for a little bit because I got 3. So I just want to, take some time, make sure I'm like doing it correctly and everything.
You mind me asking what the numbers look like on some of these apartments? Like what would purchase price look like, percentage of down payment, monthly payment, and then also what type of numbers would an Airbnb kind of bring in? If you're open to sharing that.
My whole story is based on income transparency. So I'm just like, I don't have anything to hide. So the Miami apartments, the one was 305, the other one was 350, but where are you located?
California.
You're in California. Okay.
Southern California, so like north of Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if you're like aware of the crazy influx of people to Florida right now. It's insane. So like this house, for example, that I'm in, I got for $395 and it's already valued at like $540 in the last because it's on the water, but it's like crazy. Like buying stuff in Florida is crazy. So bought the first apartment for 305, buying this next one for 350. Both of the values have already gone up a ton with that. The 305 after the mortgage, the association fees, because it's a condo, factoring in taxes divided by 12, all that stuff comes to about like $2,300 a month. But the market in Miami is insane again. People are renting that same apartment for $4,000. Same thing for the other one, kind of. Airbnb, this house is on the west coast of Florida, is a little tougher. You can't really get that much money with Airbnb on the west coast of Florida, which is why I'm considering switching to full-time, like tenant, long-term stuff. Kind of in this area, people only really can get like $150 a night on Airbnb. But then if you Airbnb'd in Miami, you can get $300 a night. But the problem is all these condo associations don't let you Airbnb. So that's always the dilemma.
You talked about like how real estate has tax advantages as well. And then I know as a freelancer, obviously, or I don't even know how they do it. Most freelancers go just like 1099, or at some point, does it make sense for you to set up like an S Corp or an LLC? And is that something that you guide people in your mentorship as well?
I'm kind of new this year into educating myself on the legalities and the taxes and everything. So I'm like still reading about it, but I dumbly, for the first 6 years was just claiming all the income as personal income, which you get taxed to destruction when you do that. My taxes haven't been terrible because of all the write-offs and everything. People always save in taxes if you're not an employee. Like anything you go ahead and do, you'll save taxes besides being an employee. This year I set up an LLC. It just made sense to do so. And my accountant advised me to. He's like, you're going to get a ton of tax breaks if you're taking your money out of the LLC. So I have an LLC now from which I process all of any business transaction stuff's going through that bank account. Learning about the tax breaks still. So I'm not a tax expert, so I can't pretend I am right now, but I am reading a book about all the crazy tax breaks you get with investing in real estate because the government ultimately wants people to create housing. So there's a lot of, goodies for people in there.
I read a book called The Tax Real Estate Loopholes, or it was Robert Kiyosaki, and that was a really good book. It talked about depreciation and
Robert, is that the Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm reading Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright, who works with Robert. Okay, so it's like all in the same, yeah.
As soon as I read one of his books, I went back to my accountant. I said, how come you didn't tell me about this? And then the next year I saved hundreds of thousands in taxes basically by reading that book. So if you haven't read Tom Wheelwright or Robert Kiyosaki's tax books, they're phenomenal. What does the future hold for you? You have quite a bit of a following now. Obviously, you've been extremely transparent in your journey as well, too. What does the future look like for you? Where do you see yourself in the next 3, 5, 10 years?
It's funny because I always say to people, I really don't plan more than a year at a time because I find that the most unexpected things have happened to me in my life that I can't even imagine what's going to be happening 10 years from now. For all I know, I could be on a farm in Vietnam with the way my life goes or something. So I pretty much just always set goals for the next year and then I try and achieve them. So I was allowed to announce this yesterday, but I signed a book deal with Wiley. That's a big deal for me. So I'm going to be writing that book into the spring. That should be coming out in the fall. That's going to be a big part of my year next year. I want the sales and everything to go well from it because I want to write 15 more books behind it. So there's kind of a lot of pressure on it. That's the main focus for me of 2022 is becoming an author officially. Probably buying more investment properties as well. I'm going to be 29 next year. So it's my last year. It's always been my dream to be on Forbes 30 under 30. I'm not even sure if I come anywhere close to qualifying for it, but I will be exploring what I can. Any 30 under 30 lists next year is my last chance.
Where did you get all this ambition? Where did you get this drive from? Is that something that like was instilled to you as a child? Is that something that maybe the group of friends that you hung out with? Where did this drive come from, or what drives you?
Well, if you ask my mom, she would tell you at age 3, like they already knew that I was going to be like this. So I think some of it was truly born into me, like honestly, but I think that also ties into like the spirituality side of it. I'm spiritual, like I believe in God and I believe this is all on purpose. So I guess my big driving thing is I believe this is my purpose every day. Like I don't think I'm on a floating rock by accident, like hurling through space. I think I'd be kind of depressed if I thought that. So I think I am me for a reason. I am the way I am. I'm doing what I'm doing for a reason. And that's the basis of it. But I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household, and the dominating culture in my family is actually a German culture from my mom and her side, which is, rub some dirt on it, suck it up. I don't want to hear the excuses. You're going to do it. You're going to do it well, and you're going to shut up about it. That was kind of the culture I grew up in. And I would complain about it some days when I'd see other kids whose moms would be like, "Oh, honey, like it's okay. I'll do your homework for you." My mom, if I ever even asked my mom to do my homework for me, she would like throw my binder out the window. So I used to complain about it, but now as an adult, I see like I'm happy that she raised me that way.
What advice would you give to somebody that maybe doesn't like their job, maybe somebody who's being forced to take a vaccine where maybe they don't want to take a vaccine, or somebody who is in a situation where maybe they feel like there's no way out? Like, is there any sort of advice you'd give for those types of people?
I'm passionate about helping all of those groups of people know like they have options. I just feel like our schooling and our society makes you feel like you don't, like you have to work in an office, you have to have a boss to be responsible, to have a stable life, and it's just not true. So if your job is like bullying you, or forcing whatever on you, I would say double up while you're at it on a Fiverr, on an Upwork, on LinkedIn. Start exploring anything. And the current skill set you have at the job you're working, you can sell that exact skill set on these sites. So I would say get on these sites right now, double up, work an hour in the morning, hour at night, double up. You'll start to see like that there's a whole nother world you never even imagined was there. And I think you'll feel better when you go to bed at night that you can quit your job if you want to.
Maybe even just try it out, not even quitting their job immediately, just kind of seeing what's out there and see if it's something that they enjoy. What about for millennials? What about for like younger people? You did this at a really young age. Like, what advice would you give to somebody that is maybe considering going to college or kind of doing their own thing? Or just maybe somebody who's lost and doesn't really know what to do?
I guess it would be the same advice that I would give the person at their job, like double up on whatever it is you're working, whatever school, whatever you're trapped in right now, keep doing that, but test out this whole freelancing idea on the side, get a feel for it. If you're someone who doesn't want to go to college, I mean, there's so many side hustles, even just besides freelancing, that you could get into, from flipping real estate, or if you want something like less risky. I mean, there's affiliate marketing, drop shipping, YouTube, like it's just nuts. There's so many ways to make money online. My advice to everyone always is just sit down at the computer, give yourself an hour and just start looking all this stuff up. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. People don't like give themselves the freedom to do that. Just start looking it up. Look at my TikTok. I talk about this stuff all the time. There's a whole online economy that is just booming.
Any final words for our viewers? And in addition, where could people go to find you? I know that you have your TikTok. You mind sharing your kind of handles with viewers for YouTube and TikTok and Insta?
Yeah, I'm on like every single social media site. So basically just look up my name because there's not many others of me. Alex, Fasulo, Fasulo, look for the red hair. My podcast is a different name though, the Freelance Fairy Tales. But all of these different things I talked about are all linked on my website. which is again, alexfasulo.com. Should make it easy for you guys to get to all of them.
All right. This was episode number 95 of the Residual Real Estate Agent Show. We had Alex Fasulo share with us about freelancing, share with us about real estate, and just kind of some of the things that she's learned along the way. I want to say thank you for taking the time to be on the show. We appreciate you being on.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.